My name is Ava Coleman. I'm 29 years old. And when I opened my eyes after 3 months in a coma, the first thing I noticed wasn't the pain, or the bright hospital lights, or even the wires taped to my skin. It was the empty chair beside my bed. No mother, no father, no siblings, no one. I woke up alive and alone. Before I take you deeper into what happened next, tell me where you're watching from and ask yourself this. If you woke up from a coma and realized your family had abandoned you, what would you do when you learned the truth behind their silence? Make sure you subscribe, because nothing about what comes next is what you think. The last thing I remembered was rain. Headlights, a sharp turn, a crash. Darkness swallowing everything. The first thing I heard waking up was the nurse's gasp. Ava Khan, you hear me? I nodded weakly, my voice barely a whisper. H. How long? 3 months? She said softly. You've been in a coma for 3 months. My stomach twisted. 3 months had passed without me. 3 months of my life gone. The doctor rushed in next, checking my vitals, shining a light into my eyes, talking about miracles and recovery timelines. But none of that mattered. I asked the question that mattered. Where's my family? They both froze. The nurse looked away. The doctor cleared his throat. Finally, he said, "There haven't been any visits noted in your chart." "What do you mean?" I asked, voice cracking. No calls, no check-ins, no messages. I felt something inside me collapse. You're saying? Nobody came. Not even once. The nurse nodded sadly. Not since the first week. The first week. After that, they stopped. My hands trembled as she placed a temporary phone on my lap. Mine had been destroyed in the accident. I called my mother, voicemail, my father, voicemail, my brother, voicemail, my sister, voicemail, every call, every number, straight to silence. I texted them all. I'm awake. Where are you? No response. Just a blinking cursor mocking me. The nurse hesitated at the door before leaving. Ava, your family only came while the social worker was assessing your situation. After that, they never came back. Social worker? I whispered. She bit her lip. Because of financial documents, assets. Something about your file surprised them. A cold weight settled in my chest. They left after learning about my financial situation. Why would that matter? And then I remembered something I had never told them. Something that changed everything. 6 months ago, my grandfather, the one they hated, the one who never gave them a dime, left everything to me. Not a little. Not even a lot. $850 million. $850M. All in my name. They thought I was broke. They thought I had nothing. That I was the unlucky one. The burden, the disappointment. So when the social worker told them I had no assets listed, they thought it confirmed what they wanted to believe. That I wasn't worth the effort. They abandoned me because they thought I had nothing. But they were wrong. They had no idea the fortune that was quietly waiting for me. No idea I was the heir to the one man they couldn't manipulate. No idea that they used his daughter. They walked away from held more wealth than all of them combined. But the moment they learned the truth, the moment they discovered the $850 million I hadn't told them about, they would come crawling back. And when they did, I would be ready. Because nothing wakes you up faster than betrayal. Waking up from a coma is strange. Your body feels like it belongs to someone else. Your memories float in pieces, and every sound feels too loud. But nothing felt louder than the silence from my family. Spaced. Nurses checked on me. Doctors asked questions. But my phone remained lifeless. No calls, no texts, not even a glad you're alive. I kept staring at the screen like a desperate habit, hoping something would appear. Nothing did. By late afternoon, the social worker visited me. Her name was Mara.com voice. Steady eyes, a clipboard held close to her chest. "Ava," she said, "I know this might be difficult, but I need to ask. Do you have anyone we should notify now that you're awake?" "My family," I said, "but they're not answering." Her expression tightened. "They were informed during the first week of your coma. After the evaluation, they chose not to be listed as emergency contacts anymore." It felt like Edie been slapped. "Why would they do that?" Her hesitation said everything. "When we assessed your case, we didn't have any financial records for you. No savings, no assets, no insurance, no employment documentation due to the accident." "That's because my paperwork was destroyed," I said. "I had everything." She nodded. "But your family assumed you had nothing." "I'm sorry, Ava. People can be strange when they think someone is a burden." The word burden hit me hard. It explained everything. They left because they thought I had nothing to offer, nothing worth staying for, nothing worth fighting for. They didn't know about the inheritance. They had written me off before I even had a chance to recover. I spent the next 2 days learning how to walk again, supported by nurses who cared more about me in a week than my family had in years. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped only to realize it was another appointment reminder or system notification. Not them. Never them. On the third morning, everything changed. I had just finished a painful physical therapy session when the nurse hurried over. "Why, Ava, your parents are in the lobby." My heart stumbled. "Now, after all this time," she nodded. "They're asking to see you. They said it's urgent." I didn't know how to feel. Anger? Relief? Confusion? Part of me wanted to send them home. Another part needed answers. When they walked into the room, my mother went straight into performance mode, wide eyes, hands clasped dramatically. "Sweetheart, you're awake. We came as soon as we heard." The lie was so casual, it almost made me laugh. My father hovered behind her, stiff and uncomfortable, and my older brother Chas leaned against the wall like he couldn't decide whether to look concerned or bored. "What do you want?" I asked. My mom blinked, offended. "We came to see you. You've been unconscious for months." I stared at each of them. "You never visited." "Not once." Chase opened his mouth, then closed it. Mom forced a trembling smile. "We thought you might not wake up." It was too painful to watch. Dad added, "And medical bills are expensive. We didn't know how we'd handle it." There it was. The truth in one simple sentence. This wasn't about love. It was about cost. "So why are you here now?" I asked quietly. Mom exchanged a glance with Chase before pretending to fix her purse strap. "We got a call from your lawyer." My pulse slowed. "My lawyer?" Dad cleared his throat. "Yes, about your grandfather's estate. Some paperwork. They needed us to confirm your identity." I allowed myself one small moment of satisfaction. They didn't even try to mask it. They weren't here for me. They were here for the money. Chase stepped closer, hands shoved in his pockets. "Mom and Dad didn't know you had that kind of inheritance. None of us did. It changes everything." I felt sick. Changes everything for who? "For all of us," Mom said, her tone hopeful. "We can help you manage it. We can keep it safe." Safe? From who? Them. I leaned back against the pillows, exhaustion washing over me. "You abandoned me for 3 months. You removed yourselves as my emergency contacts. You didn't care whether I lived or died." Mom's eyes flashed. "That's not fair." "It's the truth," I said. "And now you're here because you think you're entitled to my money." Chase's jaw tightened. "Ava, this affects the whole family." "No," I replied. "This affects me. Only me." A thick silence filled the room. Finally, my dad exhaled. "Look, you're young, and you've never handled money like this. You'll need guidance. Guidance from people who left me for dead." I stared at them, letting the quiet stretch just long enough for them to squirm. You want access? I said finally. Not to help me. To help yourselves. Mom stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Ava, we're family. Family shares everything. I pulled my hand away. Then where were you when I couldn't speak? When primera ko hold NT breathe on my own? When I needed someone to sit beside my bed? She froze. Dad's voice cracked. We made mistakes, but we're here now. Let us fix things. I looked at all of them people who only remembered me the moment I became worth something. I let out a slow breath. You didn't come back for me, I said. You came back for the $850 million. And the look on their faces told me I was right. This wasn't reconciliation. This was strategy. But they had no idea who they were dealing with now, and I wasn't the weak daughter they walked away from. They were about to learn what abandonment really cost. The moment my family left the hospital room pretending they were coming back later, I finally let myself breathe. Not out of relief, but because their presence felt suffocating, fake, and calculated. I could practically feel the greed clinging to them like a second skin. They didn't come for me. They came because someone told them I was rich. But they underestimated something. 3 months in a coma doesn't erase memories. It sharpens them. It gives you time to replay every red flag you ignored, every moment you brushed off as just family, every small betrayal you taught yourself to swallow. And the more I remembered, the clearer the picture became. My family had been preparing to cut me off long before my accident. The signs were subtle. Missed calls, short texts, last-minute cancellations. The way my mother started calling me independent instead of daughter. The way my brother Chase always joked that I didn't need the family help. The way my father never asked if I needed financial support. Even when I struggled after rent hikes, they were slowly pulling away, not because I did anything wrong, but because they didn't see value in me. Until now. 2 days after the dramatic reconciliation, I was discharged from the hospital. My physical therapist insisted I move slowly, but mentally, I felt sharper than I had in years. I called my attorney, Mr. Langford, the one handling my grandfather's estate. He had been with my family for decades, long before I inherited anything. He picked up on the second ring. Eva, I'm relieved to hear your voice. I need to meet, I said. Today? He didn't hesitate. Of course, I expected a call. The word expected stuck in my mind. His office smelled like old books and polished wood. He rose when I entered, his expression respectful but cautious, like he already knew the storm I was walking through. You want to know how they found out, don't you? He asked before I even sat down. I nodded. He folded his hands. After your accident, when the hospital contacted me, they asked whether you had insurance, assets, or any legal provisions. Standard procedure. I confirmed your identity and inheritance status. Your family called me the same day, so they knew early, I said. Yes. And once I mentioned the estate would continue as planned even if you were incapacitated, they stopped asking about your condition. There it was. Cold, clean, undeniable. They thought I was going to die, I whispered. Mr. Langford's silence was confirmation. And they were ready to take everything, I added. They asked about transferring control, he admitted, multiple times. I felt my stomach twist. They wanted to become trustees. Yes, I refused. Without your consent, they have no right. I paced the room slowly, so when it was easier to pretend I didn't matter, they abandoned me. But when they thought there was money to collect, they came back, he finished. A bitter laugh escaped me. And they expect me to pretend this didn't happen? Mr. Langford's gaze softened. Ava, you must protect yourself, emotionally and legally. I'm trying, I said, but they're relentless. He opened his drawer and slid a document across the desk. Then, perhaps it's time you see what your grandfather wanted. I glanced down. The envelope was thick, heavy, sealed with wax. Read it when you're ready, he said. Why now? Primera ask it. Because, he said gently, your grandfather knew they'd come for you. He knew how they treated him, and he expected history to repeat. My throat tightened. He added, that letter contains your instructions. Everything he left for you was intentional. I left the office with the envelope tucked against my chest like a shield. When I got home, my phone buzzed with messages. Mom, we need to talk. Important. Chase, hey sis, dinner soon? Dad, call us. We have financial decisions to discuss. Their sudden affection made my skin crawl. I ignored them. Instead, I opened my grandfather's letter. His handwriting was shaky but strong. Ava, if you are reading this, then everything I feared has happened. Your family sees worth in money, not people. I am giving this to you because you are the only one who loved me without expecting anything. Protect yourself. They will try to control you when they think there is something to gain. And if they ever abandon you, let that be your answer. Your worth is not measured by their attention. Use this inheritance to build a life they cannot touch. My eyes blurred with tears. He knew. He knew them. He knew me. And suddenly, everything became clear. They didn't abandon me because they didn't love me. They abandoned me because they thought they could gain nothing from loving me. But now that they believed I was worth $850 million, they'd pretend. They'd manipulate. They'd try to take everything. Not just money, control, power, my future. But they were about to realize something they never saw coming. When they left me to die, they lost the right to be in my life. And when they came crawling back for money, they walked into a version of me they didn't recognize, a version who wouldn't let them take a single thing ever again. They abandoned me once. Now it was my turn. The day after I read my grandfather's letter, I felt different. Not stronger, exactly. Just clearer, like something inside me had snapped into place. For the first time in years, I understood exactly who my family was and who I no longer needed to be for them. By noon, the messages were piling up. Mom, we're coming over. Dad, unlock the door. We need a serious conversation. Chase, don't make this difficult. Make this difficult. As if I was the problem. As if abandoning their daughter in a coma was a simple misunderstanding. I didn't reply, but I didn't need to. At 3:14 p.m. exactly, my doorbell rang. 3 sharp presses, impatient, entitled, expected. I opened the door a few inches, just enough to see the 3 faces that once meant home to me. Mom was wearing her negotiates and smile blazer. Dad had that stiff, disappointed expression he wore whenever life didn't bend to his will. Chase had both hands in his pockets like he was here to pick up a package, not talk to the sister he'd ignored for months. Ava Mom breathed, forcing a smile. Finally, I didn't open the door any wider. What do you want? She blinked, startled by the directness. Sweetheart, we're here to work through this. There's no reason for hostility. You left me in a coma. Primera sighed flatly. I think hostile is generous. Dad stepped forward, trying to peer inside. Let us in. We need to discuss your financial situation. There it was. Not me. Not my recovery. Not the trauma or the fear or the pain. My financial situation? No, I said, blocking the doorway. Mom's smile faltered. Eva, you're being childish. We're family. Families make decisions together. You made your decision months ago, I replied, when you walked away. Mom snapped before she could stop herself. We didn't walk away. We were overwhelmed. By what? I asked. By the cost of visiting your unconscious daughter? By the emotional burden of checking in to see if I was alive? Or by the possibility I might need help? Chase stepped in, frustration bubbling. Come on, Ava! You're blowing this out of proportion. I stared at him, stunned. I was in a coma. You never once came to see me. But now you suddenly care because I have money. He paused. That second of silence was all the answer I needed. Mom cleared her throat. Look, this inheritance is a blessing for all of us. For me, I corrected. For the family, she insisted. Firm now. Your grandfather didn't understand unity. He tore this family apart with favoritism. You can fix that. Fix it by giving them what they believed they were owed. Dad stepped forward. We've drafted a plan. You'll put the estate into a shared family trust. We'll manage it responsibly. No. My voice cut through the air like a blade. He froze. No. No, I repeated. The money stays in my name. My grandfather left it to me because he knew exactly what would happen the moment you found out. Mom's eyes narrowed. Ava, don't be irrational. You can't handle this alone. I handled the Coma alone, I said quietly. I can handle a bank account. The color drained from Chase's face. Are you serious? You're just cutting us out. You cut yourselves out, I said. When you decided my life wasn't worth your time, Mom stepped closer, her voice trembling. Ava, please. We made mistakes. But we need that money. You don't understand what we're going through. My stomach dropped at that line. What do you mean, need? I asked. Dad swallowed. Heart. We're in debt. Serious debt. How serious? He didn't answer. Mom looked away. If we managed the inheritance, we could fix everything. As a family, the truth finally cracked open. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted rescue. And I was the lifeboat they abandoned until the storm got too big. I shook my head slowly. Grandpa warned me this would happen. Mom stiffened. He poisoned you against us. No, I said. He protected me from you. The silence between us grew heavy and sharp. Dad finally exhaled. If you won't help us willingly, we'll get help another way. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. They were willing to fight, manipulate, control, maybe even drag me into court again. But this time, things were different. I'd already survived something they never expected. Waking up. You should leave, I said, stepping back from the doorway. Mom whispered, Ava, don't do this. I shook my head. You did this when you left me alone in that hospital bed. I closed the door softly, not slammed, not rushed, because I wanted the quiet to sting more than anger ever could. Through the wood, I could still hear Mom whisper, We'll be back. She can't keep that money from us. They didn't know me anymore. They didn't know what the coma changed. They didn't know what my grandfather prepared me for. And they had no idea, the one thing I'd already decided. I would never let people who abandoned me once have the power to hurt me again. But they weren't done. Not even close. Because the next morning, their lawyers showed up at my door. And that's when the real war began. The next morning, I woke up to a knock that wasn't hesitant or polite. It was the kind of knock that belonged to someone who believed they were in control. I opened the door to a man in a tailored suit, holding a leather briefcase and wearing a confident, empty smile. Ms. Coleman, he asked. I nodded. I'm Richard Holley, your family's attorney. I'm here to discuss an urgent matter concerning your inheritance. Of course, Mom, Dad, and Chase hadn't even waited 24 hours before escalating things. They had always been predictable. Greed makes people very punctual. I don't want to discuss anything with you, I said. He stepped forward slightly, voice smooth. I think you will pay materis. Significant! I crossed my arms, blocking the doorway. Then say it right here. He seemed thrown off but recovered quickly. He pulled an envelope from his briefcase and held it out. Your family is filing a petition to assume joint control of your estate? Absolutely not. He continued as if I hadn't spoken. They claim you're emotionally compromised following the coma. They intend to request temporary financial guardianship until a full psychological evaluation determines your capacity. My stomach turned. They weren't just greedy. They were willing to paint me as mentally unfit. What grounds do they have? Primera, ask it. He flipped through papers. Your medical records, notes on trauma, disorientation, memory gaps, but I'm functioning. I cut in. Your family claims you're unstable, he said smoothly, and willing to make impulsive decisions. I stared at him in disbelief. They abandoned me in a coma for 3 months, and now they're arguing I'm unfit because I survived it. He shrugged professionally. Families can be complicated. That's one word for it. He set the envelope in my hands. Your court date is in 8 days. Then he left. I stood there frozen, the chilly morning air wrapping around me like a warning. 8 days. That was all they needed to try to strip me of everything: my independence, my money, my future. But they made one fatal mistake. They assumed I was the same Ava they left behind. I drove straight to Mr. Langford's office. The moment I walked in, he took one look at my face and said, "What did they do?" I handed him the envelope. His jaw clenched. I suspected they might try this. My voice shook. They're calling me mentally unfit. Langford. They're trying to take legal control. He motioned for me to sit. Listen to me carefully, Ava. Your family is Ekasis weak, very weak. But they're counting on fear and emotional manipulation to make you cave. I'm not caving, I said. I know, he said, almost smiling. You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for. And your grandfather knew that too. He opened a drawer and placed another file on the desk. This, he said, is the document your grandfather prepared for a scenario exactly like this. My breath hitched. What do you mean? He left not just asset, but legal protections. He flipped the file open. Your mental competency was your inheritance was placed under clauses that prevent any third-party control unless you request it. And my family. They have no claim. None. Unless you voluntarily grant them access, which you won't. I felt something inside me break open: relief, gratitude, grief for a man who saw me more clearly in death than my family ever did in life. So what do? I asked. He leaned back, voice calm and steady. You show up in court, he said. You tell the truth, and you let their own actions destroy their case. 8 days later, the courtroom was full. My family sat together. Mom perched stiffly, Dad pretending to look wounded, Chase scrolling his phone like this was all beneath him. They barely glanced at me. The judge entered. Eblerun Rose. The hearing began. My family's attorney spoke first, painting me as fragile, confused, emotionally unstable. He called the coma traumatic, said I was not myself, said I was vulnerable to financial harm. They made me sound like a child holding a loaded weapon. When it was my turn, I stood. My voice wasn't loud, but it was steady, stronger than it had been in years. Your Honor, I said, my family abandoned me. They visited the first week of my coma, then never returned. They turned off calls from the hospital. They removed themselves as emergency contacts. They didn't hold my hand. They didn't speak to me. They didn't care. The room went quiet, painfully quiet. And the moment they found out, I inherited $850 million from my grandfather. They suddenly cared again. Mom gasped, hand to her chest. Ava, how could you say that? The judge held up a hand. You will remain silent. I continued. Their concern isn't for me. It's for my money. They want control, not to protect me, but to protect themselves. Langford approached with the file. Your Honor, this is a sworn notarized statement from Ava's grandfather outlining his concerns for her family's intentions. He specifically barred them from accessing her estate. The judge flipped through the pages, frowned, then looked at my family. This case is dismissed, she declared, and the petition for guardianship is denied with prejudice. Mom whispered, No. This can't. Chase muttered a curse. Dad stared at the floor. The judge continued, Additionally, given the family's attempt to manipulate the system, Miss Coleman has grounds to pursue a restraining order or civil action if she chooses. My family turned to me, eyes wide, terrified. For the first time in my life, they feared losing me. I looked right at them. "No," I said softly, "you already did." I walked out of the courtroom without looking back. They abandoned me when they thought I was worthless. They chased me when they thought I was rich. But now, they had lost me forever. My grandfather was right all along. My worth was never measured by their attention, and now neither was my freedom.